Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is your host Crooked Rook speaking, and today we're going to be doing another week in review, another week in the markets with Cassava Sciences. There's a lot to unfold here, but before we dive into everything, I do have to make those typical public disclosures to you guys. I do have a long position with Cassava Sciences, whether that is shares, options, or derivatives, all the above. So I do have to make that disclosure to you guys that I do hold a position with this company before we dive into everything here. Now, this video is going to be based off my own opinions, my interpretation of what's already out there. It's going to review public disclosures that have been made and also some other investigative findings that have happened in the market since then. Now, before you decide whether or not to take on a new position or even add to an existing position in Cassava Sciences, please do your own due diligence first before doing so. I am not a financial advisor. This is not a financial recommendation by any means. So please do your own due diligence first before any sort of investment decision is made in regards to Cassava Sciences or any other company that you are looking to invest in. All right, now with the disclosures out of the way, let's get to the meat of the conversation. This past week, Cassava Sciences reported their Q2 21 financial results and held their Q2 21 earnings conference call. Now, this came roughly 8 or 9 days earlier than originally anticipated. I believe they were supposed to announce earnings either on the 11th or the 12th, which would be this upcoming week, but instead announced 8 or 9 days earlier. And I do believe, if not entirely, this came as a result of what happened the week prior on Thursday and Friday. We saw the stock price tank over 50% between Thursday and Friday, only to then rebound this past week up over 40% relative to that low of roughly $65 that we saw near the close on Friday afternoon. Now, I don't know about you guys, but in my opinion, this was an absolute manipulation and attack on the share price. This was a deliberate attack to bring the share price down so that more people can get in and profit from this company in the long run. If they had reported bad results on Thursday, then you can obviously see that cliff and there would be no recovery thereafter. But especially as it relates to biotech, if you have bad results, it takes months, if not years, to recover back to the level where you are after you've proven that your product or products have made their way and penetrated better with their trials and back into the market. But in this case, we saw a terrible fall into almost $65 at the end of the day on Friday, back up to 96 in 7 days. I mean, 5 total trading days, but 7 days total. So, I mean, you don't have that sort of recovery where you're down 50% and then back up 40% within 7 days. So, that's my personal take on it. It just doesn't happen like that, especially as it relates to biotech. Once you fall off that cliff, you do not recover until you come up with something proven or something better. Now let's switch gears and we'll turn over to some of the stuff that was disclosed during this conference call this past Tuesday. I'm going to walk us through the conference call itself, and I'm going to have the transcript behind me so that you guys can actually see what I'm reading and where it came from. I highlighted some critical parts in the transcript that I felt are relevant and talking points that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention. And first and foremost, what I want to start with here is what Eric SCHOEN had said. Eric SCHOEN, their CFO, he had mentioned that they have $278.3 million sitting on their balance sheet. They do believe that this amount of money can fund their phase 3 program as they anticipate to initiate this coming fall, is how they disclose it. And they have no debt. They have no obligations on their balance sheet as it relates to that liability of debt sitting on their balance sheet. So this is all just cash that's sitting in the bank for them to use. Their net cash used in operations over this past 6 months was $7.4 million. But as you guys can expect, and as they expect, initiating the phase 3 program and whatnot, they expect to spend nearly double that in the back half of the year, coming out to roughly somewhere between $20 to $25 million before the end of 2021. Now, to follow up on those comments, the last thing that Eric mentions before he turns the phone over is that the company is headed for a period of hypergrowth over the next few quarters. while at the same time, they do not anticipate raising any money from the capital markets. So what that means is your shares will not become more dilutive. They are not doing another common share offering that would bring down the price of the shares because there's more shares outstanding as a result. They are looking to other means for any sort of cash that they would, or any sort of raising of funds outside of the capital markets to do so. I'll leave you to your own imaginations in speculating what that could mean. Now, when Eric turns the phone over to REMI, their CEO, and he starts off by saying that they expect to hold these conference calls more often than they have historically. There's a lot of information that I feel like they are going to be giving out or disseminating to publicly, and it's going to be coming more frequently. So they'll have these discussions, whether it's for a reassurance of that they're on the right track, or even to have conversations with shareholders and other analysts that are covering the stock, kind of just addressing periodically what is going on and giving everyone more frequent updates, which is a great sign as an investor that you would want to see more communication from the inside. So that's great. To follow up on these comments, REMI first starts by addressing the open label study. And he does this first by referring back to Dr. Burns' presentation at AAIC, where she mentions that the purpose of the open label study is to evaluate the safety and tolerability of simufilam itself, okay? So this is nothing new. This is not something crazy or rogue. They're not deviating away from the course or any sort of standard here. In fact, almost every drug candidate does have to go through an open label study, and they are adhering exactly to that protocol. They are going about it the right way. They're going about it the safe way. And while he states here then is that they can all agree that the open label does not prove efficacy, because you do need to have a control group to kind of use as a basis for comparison, unequivocal proof of efficacy requires a phase 3 program, which is coming up. So not only is he addressing the fact that we had this open label for phase 2. We know that phase 3 would have the control group and show that efficacy that everything is looking for. But the results that we have in the meantime for what we are bringing to the table are absolutely remarkable, all things being considered. He then further reiterates again why they're conducting this to begin with. It is a standard in demonstrating safety for drug candidates. And second, right here, he mentions that if there's no benefit that's shown in a well-designed open label study, then there's no chance that it would be successful in a randomized controlled phase 3. It just wouldn't make sense to spend all this money up front for phase 2 when you know that money and that control group is going to be utilized in phase 3, contingent on there being proof of safety, proof of tolerability, and proof of either retention or improvement in cognition through phase 2. To then back that up in the next few sentences here, he mentions that it saves about $100 million in shareholder value to be then spent on a phase 3 program after all of this has been proven out, that there is safety and tolerability there, and that they can now work towards getting that randomized control group integrated into a phase 3 program, justifying spending this type of money. To further support everything just mentioned, REMI talked about how he believes that the data is one of a kind, and he believes it's the first report of significant cognitive improvement at the 9-month level that also tracks with profound improvements in biomarkers in patients with Alzheimer's. But more than that, the most important thing that he finds impressive about simufilam itself is that it shows continued improvement on the same dose. Given the fact that Alzheimer's is a disease with inevitable decline, these patients are being given the same dose of simufilam, and at the 9-month level, they are showing cognitive and biomarker improvements. He then goes on to say that he believes this is unprecedented, and he thinks that this may just be the biggest blockbuster in pharmaceutical history. Pretty strong words coming from the CEO of Cassava Sciences. They're also confident in believing that the data will replicate itself in phase 3, and they're looking forward to reading out the phase 2 12-month data sometime later this fall. Now let's switch gears over to the other side of this conference call, which they want to address their strategy for corporate growth. Now, on the tactical side, they mentioned that they may need to double the size of the company every year for a number of years. That is incredible. If that's what their outlook is, I'm very excited to see what they come out with next, and whatever their next announcement is, because it might just shatter or break into entirely new frontiers that have never even been thought of or dreamed of before in the Alzheimer's space. REMI further elaborates by saying that in addition, over the next few weeks or months, we expect to make a public announcement regarding an event that we think will result in significant multi-year capital inflows to Cassava Sciences, and that they expect these capital inflows to be non-dilutive and non-debt. So whatever kind of announcement they have here, it will be to support whatever operations they have going forward. Again, not on the capital market side, and not inclusive of any debt. Now we're going to do another gear change here, and we're going to turn to the side that everyone's kind of wondering about. You know, the stock price manipulation. How obvious is it? What's going on? And really, what does SAVA think about it? So right here, we see that REMI mentions before this data was made public, untold certain law firms dumped hundreds of millions of dollars of our stock on the open market. Again, this occurred before the data was announced. To me, this doesn't feel like normal market volatility or profit take. Feels like it was a well-coordinated, well-timed market strategy to force the price of Cassava Sciences share price down. He then continues to say that he doesn't have the expertise to say whether this was market manipulation or not, but it sure as heck felt like it, given the fact that you're at the biggest Alzheimer's conference in the world. AAIC, you get invited there. Whereas most of the other companies, if not all the other companies, I'm not entirely sure what the statistic is, had to pay to be there. These guys got invited to give this 9-month data readout, which they weren't even originally planning to do. They were planning to do 6-month and 12-month. So now you're at the biggest stage in the world for Alzheimer's, and you're about to give this groundbreaking information. You give it, and it's beyond what anyone ever expected. You know, not only did they retain, but they improved cognition at the 9-month level. They showed improvement in biomarker data, and yet the share price plummets into the earth. Like, the complete inverse of what your anticipation is happens. You know, I'd be personally offended as well if I were, you know, anyone working at Cassava Sciences, just on that alone. Like, they're probably excited to give this information. They want the data to do the talking because they feel like it's so groundbreaking that this should spread like the plague, you know, everywhere. Like, there's been like some kind of remarkable breakthrough in data here. And although we do have more to prove out, what they are showing has never before been seen. And then to add insult to injury on top of that, where they're talking about the critics hitting below the belt here. They talked about one of their critics is a fellow in England who called the entire data set rubbish. Like, okay. Coincidence? This guy is a highly paid consultant for Biogen. Like, are you like, okay. I gotta calm down here for a second, because this is just absolutely absurd. Like, beyond absurd. We're looking at a company that just announced absolutely incredible data that the world should be excited for. There are so many people that have loved ones that suffer from Alzheimer's. And, you know, to see, you know, this breakthrough kind of just get stomped into the dirt and saying that the data is rubbish. Are you out of your mind? And then to see that you're a highly paid consultant for Biogen. Well, duh. Like, of course Biogen's going to want to rub this thing into the dirt. If Simifilam comes out here and actually shatters the world in coming up with some sort of remedy or some sort of cure that improves patients with Alzheimer's, Biogen will lose millions, if not billions of dollars in revenue. And everything that they've done thus far for their research into Alzheimer's is just literally going to turn into a sunk cost. Either that or they're going to have to redo everything and get on the same level here, because this is just, I mean, is anyone home? Hello? Like, are we reading this and watching this the same way? I get upset, not as an investor in this scenario, but I'm even thinking about the people that probably are following this and they really truly want to know whether or not there's something to be excited about, whether their loved ones have something that may or may not actually improve their livelihood and improve, their daily habits and their cognition and their retention of information. And yet they get this information, but the first couple days, even after it's announced, it's like stomped into the dirt. And it's a perfectly timed attack if it is, I'm just going to say that I speculate it is because I don't have proof that it was by any means. But to think about it, like the day that the data was released at AAIC, you have 2 days to screw this thing down into the dirt. You have Thursday and Friday. Then as of Saturday and Sunday, everyone starts to get their head back on properly and process the data effectively, but the damage has already been done. So for investors that were watching this on Thursday and Friday, they're like, am I missing something here? Like, myself included, am I missing something here? Like, we have improvement in the data, but the share price is tanking. Like, what the heck is going on here? And then all of a sudden, Thursday and Friday are over, and everyone has a chance to digest the information. We have Saturday and Sunday, and everyone, oh, maybe it wasn't that bad. Oh, maybe, bull. I'm not going to get explicit here, but that is such bull. To see that kind of recovery the next week, they knew what they were doing. They screwed all the investors on the way down, and now they're riding this thing until it's jacked up to the moon. And it is so obvious. There's no proof that we can say as of yet, but let's call out the SEC. Hey, SEC, do you think you could look into this maybe? Because it sure seems like a whole lot of bull, and there's a whole lot of people that are involved in it, because there's only one way that you can get hundreds of millions of dollars from institutions or hedge funds or law firm, whoever the heck is plummeted this price down to earth, because it sure as heck isn't me as a retail investor, to then ride it back up here, and we're seeing 40% gains from that $65 low that we saw on Friday back into the 90s the next week on no other new news other than what was presented in this conference call. So can we just point our attention to that here for a second? Then to add insult to injury, or what I'm seeing even as a personal attack at this point, was Dr. Burns, who actually gave the readout at the AAIC conference. She's one of the most accredited people you could probably possibly ever want to have on your team, especially for something like this. I mean, she has her bachelor's degree in psychobiology, and she has her doctorate or PhD in philosophy with an expertise in experimental psychology. But somehow along the way, she was attacked by being quoted as worthy of an undergraduate student, her work being worthy of an undergraduate student. Like, what more could you possibly want? Like, this woman has done some unbelievable stuff at this point in her life, even just from an educational standpoint, but now what I'm going to say, in my personal opinion, is working for the leading candidate in Alzheimer's research and hopefully a treatment for it. And yet you're going to say that her work was worthy of an undergraduate student by the same Biogen consultant. Wow. Of course he's going to say crap like that. Why would he have to say anything kind or anything supportive about what she's doing? You know what? Honestly, I don't know if the Cassava Sciences team will see this video. I sure as heck hope that they do, because you guys have all the credit in the world to be given to you for the stuff that's going on behind the scenes, and even that you're coming out with now. And you have every right to be pissed off and frustrated and upset, because there comes a point in life and in the world where it's like, even for stuff like this, where it's helping humanity, like, people will still be against you. And if it's a competitor, of course they're going to write this stuff. So I really hope that they don't take any of the stuff that was, said by this paid consultant for Biogen personally. You guys are doing absolutely remarkable work. You deserve to know that. And I think everyone, especially even all the other retail and accredited investors that I've spoken to about Cassava Sciences, you guys are doing some groundbreaking stuff, and whether you have or do know someone that is personally affected by Alzheimer's, I can only imagine the thanks that they have, and I'll even say on their behalf, for the stuff that you're doing. And this is a classic case of the smaller player in the field here getting larger, obviously, because more people are catching on, but the smaller player in the field that doesn't have the same type of clout and reputation, whatever the heck you want to call it, as the Biogens and the Eli Lillys and whoever else under the sun here, getting trounced on, because obviously they're threatened. They're threatened by you guys, and they don't want to see anything successful come out of your labs, because they're going to be in a whole world of hurt if you guys overtake them. And you know what? I really hope at this point that you guys are the ones to kind of not only stick it to them, but stick it to the shorts who actually screwed you guys over last week or the week before rather, in bringing the share price down, when you guys deserve to see the merit review rewards. And so do we as the investors. To be honest, let's be real here. We're investors. We're excited about what you guys have. Not only do we believe in the share price, we believe in the science. Okay, so don't think that should be taken any less than really what it is. And you guys are showing that through the data, and we believe in it. We're looking at the data too, so don't think that it's going unnoticed here. And again, this same woman, Dr. Burns, she was called out by her first name by critics she never even met before. It's not like she knows them on a first name basis by any means. And she led this Alzheimer's program for over 10 years, since its inception, for over 10 years. And yet you're going to discredit that by saying like, oh, we don't believe that data, just for a temporary, even a calculated temporary hit piece like this, to bring her, the reputation of her, the reputation of the company down, just so that you can make a couple bucks by being a paid consultant from Biogen. Like, come on, man. Like, it gets to a point where it's just absolutely ridiculous. And then they quote here, another analyst singled out her biomarker data and dismissed its importance while claiming Alzheimer's patients can change their own CSF biomarkers by changing their lifestyles. In other words, what this analyst is saying is if you have Alzheimer's, it's your own fault. Go change your lifestyle. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding? How do these guys not get just absolutely decimated by the public? Not only attacking, Dr. Burns and her and what she's come out with and what she's presenting to everyone, but then to make claims that are so ridiculous, like just absolute trash, that like you can control whether or not you have this disease. Like, again, I'm going to curb my tongue, but yeah, Remy, you're absolutely right. This is absolutely outrageous. People do go through unspeakable suffering and loss of their dignity as this disease progresses. It's like a slow death. You don't even know the person, or the person doesn't even know you, and you certainly don't recognize that person anymore. Yet some people are out there saying that you can change this by changing your lifestyle. You can reverse this cognitive decline, based off you making changes in your lifestyle. It's your own fault for not, dealing with it yourself. Like, I'm appalled that that's even a consideration, or even a thought that someone spoke audibly about, like, controlling their destiny as to whether or not they succumb to Alzheimer's or not. Like, anyway, let's move on. Just to wrap up this section of the conference call, the last thing that Remy mentioned, and I completely agree with, is he says that it was an attack on Dr. Burns' gender, her personal background, and even the entire Alzheimer's community. Yeah, I do think it is an insult to the entire Alzheimer's community, because seriously, like, to refute the data that came out of the conference and just intentionally knock it down or spin it, controlling a narrative, if you will, to spin it in a way that presents this data in any other light other than positive for what it is just absolute garbage. And I really hope that everyone who is an investor or looks to become an investor looks at the data itself. Don't believe the pieces that come out about this stuff, because you have to read the data for yourself. And if you have questions, ask. I'll post links in the description here for you guys. If you do have questions, whether you want to join the Discord or, follow the Twitter or whatever the case is to get more information, whatever information it is that you need. Don't take the first thing that comes out of someone's mouth just because it's the first thing that came out and I don't have time to see it myself, so I got to believe what this guy says. If it's not good, it's not good. No, because as information is digested and more people realize what's going on, then all of a sudden they're like, wow. And that's exactly what's going to happen. I bet you any money, if it's not at the 12-month marker readout, when they do read that out this fall, then it'll be whatever announcement that SAVA has to make, however big or small, whatever that next announcement is that they mentioned. Or if it's somewhere in the middle of phase 3, they're going to say, well, it wasn't sufficient to say it at 9 months, but now it is. Now they're going to change their pants real quick, and they're going to get on the right side of the fence, because trust me, at that point, they're going to be on the wrong side of history if they have anything to disagree with here, other than what the science has actually proven and shown thus far based on their results. So that's just my 2 cents there, and I'm calling it now because I could just see it, like these same guys that were discrediting it, once they have either more money behind them or they're further along in phase 3 or something like that, and people actually do address the randomized control, the placebo that everyone wants to see in phase 3 in order to give it more substance and credit and everything like that. I do think that SAVA's going to prove it out, and once they do, which I have confidence that they will, you're going to see these guys literally change their entire narrative just to fit now. It's the greatest thing we've ever seen in the world. And, but in the meantime, if you're getting paid by the competitor, yeah, why would you say anything positive? You're not getting paid for that. You're getting paid. They might lose that revenue stream, and then you're not going to get paid by them. So yeah, you're going to jump ship real quick. So that's my take on it. But anyway, I digress. Let's move on. So just to summarize a couple more points here towards the end of the conference call, that REMI is first reiterating that Cassava is well financed. They are growing. They are not raising money anymore. They're not looking to the capital markets, and they're certainly not taking on any more debt to finance operations going forward. We have a couple things to look forward to here. They're initiating on phase 3, and again, they will be announcing their 12-month data on safety and cognition sometime this fall. So there are a couple catalysts that we have to look forward to. They haven't given any sort of concrete dates or times or anything like that. I am by no way, shape, or form affiliated with the company, so I do not have a heads up on their timeline in any capacity. But I really just hope that these guys get the credibility that they deserve. And I'm sitting here as a small content creator putting out this information because I just don't see them getting the exposure that they really do deserve. And I feel like that will come one day. But I wanted to report on it at this point in time because I truly think what they're doing over here is remarkable. And at some point in time, hopefully soon, maybe very soon, I don't know, they will be able to stick it to those naysayers. They will be able to stick it to those critics, and they will be able to stick it to those shorts who completely manipulated, in my opinion, everything that's going on revolving the stock price as an investor. And I really want to see, in this case, science prevail and the facts become the facts, and they're not manipulated or twisted or perceived in any other negative light other than what they actually are. There will always be critics, but at the same time, I do think that there's a time and place for that. And when you have some remarkable information and data coming out, even from a smaller, I shouldn't even say smaller, they're in the billions now, but SAVA, they're not the Biogens, they're not the Eli Lillys just yet, and I think their day will come. But to have it not really been put on a platform so that these guys get the recognition and the breakthroughs that they've made at this point, I feel is a disservice. So those are my opinions. Let's turn over to a couple other resources that I've been looking at just to kind of track and support my opinions and my narrative to this entire video, and then we'll wrap it up. So the first of a few pieces of information that I would like to point out here is that, subsequent to the conference call and the earnings announcement and release of data that they gave in the conference call, they submitted their 10Q to the SEC. And here we see note 10 on August 4th, 2021, The company completed the purchase of a 2-building office complex in Austin, Texas, which will serve as its new corporate headquarters. The property is intended to accommodate the company's anticipated significant growth and expansion of its operations in the coming years. They expect to be hands-off with regards to the property management. Totally understandable. The property purchase price was $21.9 million, exclusive of these closing costs, funded with cash on hand. The office complex measures approximately 90,000 rentable square feet. It's currently 59% leased before the effect of the company occupying approximately 25% in the near future. Okay, so that's the first thing that I wanted to point out. This is obviously publicly disclosed information. This came from their 10Q, which is, you could see, I'm on the Cassava Sciences website. I went into, their IR. I pulled up their latest 10Q filing, and here we are with the help of some of the other investors and whatnot that I know to kind of point out this information. All right, the next piece of information I'm going to go through with you guys here is FINTEL.io, and I was helped in finding this information by some other SAVA investors, and they particularly pointed this out because you can look up things. I don't know if it's for every company, but at least for SAVA it worked. Look up their SEC filings, institutional ownership, financial information, short interest, and insider trading. But it was brought to my attention to look at the institutional ownership, given the fact that it's close to month end, and a lot of firms will be disclosing new positions via 13Fs. And well, ladies and gentlemen, it did not disappoint. Check this out. As of the 6th, which was Friday, We've had all the green rows show new positions. All the red rows show closed positions. And look at all this action. I mean, I'm going to scroll back to the conference was the 29th, right? So the morning of the 29th, and this is just the file date. So just when they filed, this doesn't mean that their positions were actually put in on that date. It means that this is just when they actually are disclosing them and when they're submitting these 13Fs. So if we look at the 29th through the 6th, look at this. I mean, absolutely insane, the number of new positions that were opened here. And look at the value change, the percentage change in shares. So who picked up, who got rid of, who did what with them. And in particular, I want to point out the average share price. Average share price. So, we're looking at this $65. I mean, 65, 63.50, 65, 65, 60. Why is it 65? Why is everyone so focused on this 65 number? I mean, I really, how did they all know? Or how do they all coordinate to think of that 65 was the low? Why didn't they think 103 at the end of Thursday was going to be the low? Or that on the way down on Friday that it was ever going to bottom out at 65? I mean, that's kind of ironic or interesting. A coincidence that they all happen to be involved at trading this relatively close, all within a week of each other, at relatively close to the same price. I mean, come on, guys. Like, I'm just putting puzzle pieces together, okay? I'm not saying any of these firms were involved in bringing the price down. I don't know that for sure. I don't know, maybe it was a coincidence and they all just happen to think, well, based on our intrinsic valuation of the company, we think that it'll be worth $65. And if it ever hits that point, we're going to buy. Well, okay. My opinion, no, I don't believe that for one bit. Okay. I think if we look at the share price here, we see the high was 146. The 52-week range high was 146. So let's look at when that happened. Well, that happened on the morning of the conference, right? And then we look over here at the next day and look at that low price. Very interesting. Somehow on Friday before market closed, we hit 65. $65. Isn't that some sort of, I remember talking about that number just a minute ago, didn't I? 65 being the absolute low that it has hit within this window here. Yeah, so, and we're looking even at the volume. Look at the volume these days leading up to the conference. Obviously, you can expect when they announce news and whatnot there to be some volume. 3 million, almost 6, 3.6 million, 5.7 million, 20.6 million the day of the conference, and the day after the conference, 25 million shares for a company that average volume is around what, 3.6, I think it was. Okay, now 3.8, but at the time, it was around 3.6 when we were seeing how much average volume they had before these giant upticks in volume that they show these 2 days that kind of heavily weight the average in the opposite direction upwards. So I mean, it's just unreal. Like, I mean, it's very real, and we're seeing it, but to see this kind of action all clustered around the same time, like brand new positions, some of them, they don't show the prices, but they show the number of shares, and they show the number of shares that were picked up. They had 2 days to screw with this thing. 2 days before people were going to start to catch on and read the information, look at the science, see if it really was BS, because I'm sure so many people were anticipating it, and some people probably did read it, and they were like, this is incredible, like myself. And then all of a sudden to see that not translate correctly with what they presented and see it tank, it just reeks, it just really, something's fishy here. So, I'm not suggesting that any of these guys were involved. Again, I'm not going to sit here and say that. But I will say that it's very, very coincidental that somehow they all got these average share prices right around that low on Friday of $65. And now look, they're riding it back up. They've already made 40% on their position after, if any of them were involved, I don't know, but if any of them were involved in tanking it and intentionally getting it down to where it is to buy it back up and get it to not even remotely close to where I think it should be right now, but still making gains on that. I think it's a case of FOMO here. They're mad they missed the boat. Really, that's what it was. So, let's screw everyone on the way down, pick everything up on the way up when people, whether they had to sell off or, covering margin, whatever the heck the people had to do in order to get out of their positions, in order to not be on the hook. They had to do it, and then all of a sudden, in a week's time, 5 trading days, we're back to 96. And nothing has changed except for this conference call that happened on Tuesday. And to sit there and be like, oh, well, that's the whole reason why it got brought up. Well, even if we look on Monday, that day we went from, what was it? So it closed 69 here on, that was Friday. It opened at 77 on Monday. That was before the conference call, and closed at almost 80. And then before, when the conference call actually happened and everything, this brought it up to, 85. And then we know the history for the rest of the week and whatnot. Volume kind of deteriorated towards the tail end of the week and whatnot, as to be expected. But the damage was done. They had the 2 days to get it down to where they wanted it, to where they needed it, and to where they were going to sink their teeth in, whoever was involved. And that's my opinion. I really, truly feel that this was a blatant and obvious attack, because the data speaks for itself. They know they got some gold here, and they're getting it down to the cheapest price that they possibly can to make the greatest return when this thing jacks up to the moon. So that's my take. And that's truly how I feel this whole thing went down. Now, last but not least, the remaining piece of information I want to point out to you guys, I was just only recently made aware of this, is that there are platforms, brokerage platforms, trading platforms that are offering weekly options on SAVA. I'm not sure entirely which ones have those offerings, but I just want to make sure that you guys are absolutely prudent and diligent in your research and your convictions on whether or not you want to invest in SAVA. And if you decide to partake in any of these weekly options trades, I mean, just be very, very careful. Do your diligence. Talk to a financial advisor if you need to, and do this at your own risk. Because truly, in my opinion, I think this is a play because the shorts really, it's like a ticking time bomb or a loaded gun. They've shorted a lot of shares, and they have some ground to make up. So they'll they'll probably take, I mean, really, they'll take money in whatever capacity they possibly can. I don't know who they are, but I'm seeing the fact that if this is an offering here, you know, you got to be dead on with your timing. If SAVA does report something, whether it's sooner, whether it's later, you have to be absolutely sure, or even, you know, close to certain that you are, you know, you're hitting the timing in accordance with the timelines that you're speculating from SAVA themselves. So just be extremely careful. I do think that they know that they have the bag right now, and if any news were to be announced on these guys that is substantial enough to catapult this thing into the stratosphere, they're going to be caught holding the bag, and it would be certainly a perfect opportunity to burn the shorts. But at the same time, if you are wrong and any sort of announcement is delayed and you picked up on earlier timing, you know, you're going to face that IV, that volatility of a shorter time frame. And I would hate to think that anyone falls victim to, you know, doing short-term options trading, thinking that something is going to happen. And it's enticing, you know, obviously it's there, because if they do say something, knowing these catalysts that are coming up, and you're right, obviously that's great, that's good for you. But at the same time, if you're wrong, that will certainly only continue to pad the pockets of the shorts, because, you know, it won't be worth anything at expiration. So just be careful whether you decide to do any sort of options trading, whether you're in the money, out of the money. I just wanted to point it out there, because if you want to make a point that I was trying to make out of this is that the options expire every Friday, okay? And even as I was looking at the share price, even this past week, I mean, again, this is my speculation. Monday we went up, Tuesday we went up, Wednesday we went up, Thursday we went up. Options expire on Friday. We got to peg the price down and get ourselves all the money that we can get on both the call side and the put side. So let's peg it down on Friday. And that was the only time that we had a losing day this past week. And surprisingly, coincidentally, I found out that they were doing options or weekly options trades as of this past week. I mean, I've been watching this thing like a hawk. So, you know, it's... Anyway, you guys come to your own conclusions on that. I'm just making sure that you're aware of it. So I'm going to obviously be watching the price every Friday going forward, just because when these options are expiring, and just seeing the walk-ups and the ladders down and people getting excited and anticipating, you know, data and whatnot. Just be very, very diligent and very, very careful. You know, I truly think that the shorts will one day get their due, but we just don't know when any other information is coming out. And if they do have spectacular information, you know, I'm sure they've been trying to cover since it's been brought down so heavily. So to bring it back up, I mean, you know, unless more people are selling at a lower price, they're going to have to pick up these shares at some point. And if there's news, this thing will go into the stratosphere, and you could see a bit of a short squeeze on that point if more people are picking up more shares and they have to cover their positions and, you know, and the like. So we don't know. I mean, it's all speculation at this point, and we certainly don't know the timing on anything. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys are absolutely aware that these weekly options do exist. And, you know, I'm not going to advise to do it or to not do it, but just be very, 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 very careful. Again, my opinion is that it's a trap. That's my personal opinion. But do your own due diligence and come to your own conclusions. And if you decide to dabble, I wish you all the best. But that's going to do it for me in this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry if this was a long one. This wasn't an interview, but I did want to put this out here for those of you who didn't either see the transcript or have a chance to dissect it. Hopefully I shed some light on some areas maybe that you did know about or did not know about, and you can utilize these tools for yourselves going forward, whether it's for SAVA or any other company that you decide to invest in or are already invested in. All right. So thank you guys so much again for watching. Have a fantastic rest of your day, a great week. And you can guarantee that any news that does come out, if there is any, that I'll probably do another recap video whenever that may be. So thank you guys again for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care, guys.